Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. How are you all? Welcome to another biology class. I'm your biology teacher, Mujahidul Hassan. So today we are going to learn from chapter 7 and today's topic is gas exchange. Um, gas exchange of plants and also gas exchange in plants and also in humans. Okay, let's start with the plants. Actually, gaseous exchange occurs in all organisms. Okay, gaseous exchange is a physiological phenomenon of organism. So gaseous exchange is plants and animals are of different types. Gaseous exchange in plants. Uh, Here we are going to learn at the very first gaseous exchange in plants. So a gas exchange in common we know the respiration, the physiological process of respiration, that means breathe in and breathe out. So how plants breathe in and breathe out? So actually there is no special organ in plant to breathe, like us, like our nose, nostrils, lungs, respiratory organs. Plants, there is no special organs in plants like this. Okay, so actually a plant exchange gases mainly through two physiological process, and these two physiological process are actually photosynthesis and respiration. And these two processes are accomplished through many chemical reactions. Plants take carbon dioxide from air and leave oxygen by photosynthesis. And on the other hand, plants also take oxygen from the air and then leave carbon dioxide by respiration. So that means photosynthesis and respiration are kind of vice versa thing. So the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide and other gases occurs through the stomata of leaves and lenticels on the bark of the mature stem. Okay, so like our nose and nostrils and the plants, they have stomata, in their leaves, and lenticels on their bark. Okay, so there is no special organ in the plant to breathe like nose, but they have stomata and lenticels. In plants, the frequent exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide does not occur as it happens to an animal. Like we breathe and breathe out in a rhythmic way. But plants in plant, the frequent exchange does not occur. It happens in a required basis. Okay, in daylight or in presence of sufficient light, the rate of photosynthesis, that means the oxygen production and carbon dioxide consumption in daylight, usually this phenomenon occurs in more. The rate of photosynthesis is high than the night. Usually, most of the cases, without in absence of sunlight, photosynthesis does not takes place. Okay, so does not take place. Okay, but the respiration is a continuous process. It takes place night and day, 24 hours. Okay, so an amount of oxygen gas produced in photosynthesis is spent in respiration. Okay, because respiration is a process in which oxygen is consumed and carbon dioxide are released. So, in a sense, photosynthesis and respiration are vice versa thing for plant. Reversely, an amount of carbon dioxide gas produced in respiration is used in the photosynthesis, and so the amount of the gases exchanged are approximately the same in plants. So at night, the light phase of the photosynthesis process ceases and no oxygen gas is not produced, but the respiration process occurs round the clock, day and night, and the production of carbon dioxide continues. The carbon dioxide gas is released in the environment through stomata, and these gases are also exchanged through the lenticels developed in the bark of the mature stem. This is why breathing problem may develop if someone sleeps under a big tree at night. Okay, because due to the lack of oxygen. A plant obtains its required gases from its environment, just as the leaf absorbs oxygen and carbon dioxide from the air. Root also absorb required water from the soil. Oxygen gas is produced as a result of the reaction between carbon dioxide and water, which plants absorb from the soil by the root. Here the water absorbed from the soil by the root, and then oxygen gas returns in the atmosphere through the stomata and lenticels. In this way, exchange of gases goes on in a plant. Okay, so now let's talk about the human respiration. Human respiration means the human gaseous exchange of gases in humans. Mm, So, to sustain our life, oxygen is indispensable for a living being. Not a single animal can survive without oxygen. Oxygen enters the body with air and is pushed into the lungs and is then carried to all of the organs through the blood. Within the somatic or body cells, food substances use oxygen to break down the digested food substances like the food we consume to produce heat and energy. Okay, and this heat keeps the body warm and supplies necessary energy. So oxygen reacts with digested food substances to produce carbon dioxide and water, and then blood carries those substances to the lungs, and here oxygen is absorbed and carbon dioxide is expelled. Okay, the process of inhaling oxygen with which digested food substances in the body are body cell are oxidized, convert the potential energy into usable energy, that means the kinetic energy, and eliminate carbon dioxide is called respiration. So this is the definition of the respiration. Okay, the process of inhaling oxygen with which digested food substances in the body cell are oxidized by those oxygen, and then it converts the potential energy into usable energy, and then it eliminates carbon dioxide, and this process is called the respiration. If the supply of oxygen stops for 3 to 4 minutes, this is inevitable. See here, this is the reaction, these are the reactions of respiration. One molecule of glucose, when it reacts with the 6 molecule of oxygens, it will produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and also ATP energy. Okay, so now let's talk about the breathing mechanism, breathe in and breathe out, how humans breathe in and breathe out gases. Okay, so breathe in, all the organs related to the breathing remain open only through the pharynx, only through our nostrils. Okay, here is the only way air can enters into our body, and this is also the only way of breathe out the air which produced within the body. So this one is the in and exit way of our air. Nostrils and mouth. So you can call it the pharynx also. So all the organs related to breathing remain open only through this pharynx. Here, pharynx. Why they mention pharynx? Because this pharynx is a um, common place for both the nostrils and also for our mouth. So the other ends of the organs remain closed. The air enters air sacs of the lungs easily through the nasal passage. Nerve impulses help in managing breathing. Okay, our nerve impulses helps in managing breathing. So the process that moves air in and out of the lungs so that oxygen can be exchanged for carbon dioxide is called breathing or ventilation. Okay. So breathing is one part of physiological respiration and is required to sustain our life. So the process held by the contraction and flattening of the chest. Two types of muscles are involved in ventilation or breathing mechanism. The first one is diaphragm. Diaphragm here. This is the diaphragm. Diaphragm, a domed muscle that separates our thorax and abdomen, and another one, intercostal muscle, presents in between the ribs. Human breathe about 16 to 18 times per minute. Okay. So the mechanism of breathing in man involves two events: inspiration or breathe in, or expiration or breathing out. Okay. So inspiration or breathe in is an active process. Okay. And during inspiration, here our intercostal muscles contract so that the ribs swing outwards and upwards. And as a result, it increases the diameter of the thorax. It results increases the diameter of the thorax. And at the same time, the dome-shaped diaphragm here is flattened. Here, this one is flattened. Then see, this one is the curved one. But see here, this one is flattened or contracts, flattened. So due to the contraction of the muscles, the diaphragm become flattened. Okay. And the combined effect is to increase the capacity of the thorax, which creates a partial vacuum, and as a result of which the air is drawn into the lungs. Okay. Here, air is drawn into the lungs. In lungs, exchange of gases between this inspired air and bloodstream takes place through the internal lining of the alveoli due to different concentration gradient. And the breathe out mechanism, then that means the expiration or exhaling mechanism. This is an automatic or passive process. Okay. This one, this inhaling mechanism or the inspiration mechanism was the active one, but this one is not the active one. This one is a passive process. That means it does not require any energy. So during without during expiration, the intercostal muscles and the muscles of the diaphragm relax, as a result of which the ribs fall and the sternum sinks and the diaphragm is arched upward, and this reduces the volume of the cavity of the thorax, and as a result air is expelled from the lungs, and this outflow of expired air is called the expiration or breathe out or exhaling. Okay. So during expiration, however, all air is not expelled from the lung, but some residual air is always left in the alveoli. And in an adult person, inspiration and expiration rate, breathe in and breathe out rate is 16 to 18 per minute. Okay. So now, so this is the summary of the inhalation and exhalation process. This is the main key events. Like ribs move out. So during inhalation, ribs move out, diaphragm moves down, making the chest cavity bigger. Air then rushes into the lungs and they inflate. And then during exhalation, ribs move downwards and inwards, and diaphragm moves up. Chest cavity is reduced. Air rushes out of the lungs, and the lungs grow smaller. These are the key events. So these key events, if you mention these key events during the description, when you write down the process, these key events helps you out. Okay. So now let's talk about the gaseous exchange in the lungs and body cells, or the gaseous exchange between the lungs and the blood. So blood passing next to alveoli contains lots of carbon dioxide and little oxygen, as the blood returns to the lungs from the rest of the body. This is the reason. Okay. So So gaseous exchange means the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. It occurs in between the air and blood vessels of the lungs. And gaseous exchange occurs in two steps: the absorption of oxygen and the giving out or expelling of carbon dioxide. Okay. So absorption of oxygen. Gaseous exchange in the lungs takes place through diffusion. Okay, diffusion is a mechanism. In the blood, oxygen does not remain free. A large amount of oxygen combines with the hemoglobin of the red blood corpuscles and form oxyhemoglobin. So this is a temporary compound. These are hemoglobin and oxygen. They remain bound temporarily and very unstably. And the production of these compounds depend on the concentration of the oxygen in the blood plasma. During blood transport, a large amount of oxygen diffuses from the plasma to the lymph. Okay, So this happens when the oxygen concentration in the lymph is less. So the oxygen concentration in the plasma become less. And then hemoglobin begins to give up oxygen which was bound with it. And in this way, at first, oxygen enters the plasma and then into the lymph or intracellular fluid, and steps which occur during oxygen transportation. Okay. So the exchange of gases between alveoli and blood and tissue occurs by diffusion. And diffusion of gases takes place due to the gas pressure from higher to lower region. Um, and the direction of the diffusion is higher to lower concentration region, higher concentration to lower concentration, and higher pressure to lower pressure. So after entering into the blood from the lungs, dissolved oxygen flows in two ways. A small amount of oxygen flows in the plasma, and most of the oxygen makes a loose bond with the iron part of the hemoglobin and forms a temporary compound called oxyhemoglobin. From oxyhemoglobin, oxygen separates very easily, okay, because they are bound with each other very unstably and for temporary time. So after entering the blood capillaries, oxygen separates and penetrates into lymph by diffusion, first from the red blood corpuscles and then blood capillaries. And lastly, from the lymph, oxygen reaches the cell after penetrating the cell membrane. This is the overall scenario. So here you see when so how actually okay, let me review the oxygen exchange with from this gas to blood. So here oxygen ins here from the alveoli. When air in, it uh, uh, see here the concentration of oxygen is higher than the concentration of oxygen here within the blood capillary. So that's why due to this oxygen gradient, here within the alveoli, oxygen is higher than the blood stream. Oxygen through diffusion diffuse from alveolus to here into the capillaries. Okay, and the pressure differences is almost 104 millimeter Hg here within this alveolus, and here within the bloodstream oxygen pressure, the pressure of oxygen is around 40 millimeter Hg. So that's why oxygen can easily diffuse from here alveolus to bloodstream. Okay, and then carbon dioxide transport. Carbon dioxide is produced by the oxidation of food within the cell. And this carbon dioxide at first diffuses through the cell membrane into the lymph, and then from the lymph, carbon dioxide enters the blood plasma to capillary diffusion. And then carbon dioxide is mainly transported as bicarbonate to the lungs. And in the lungs, the carbon dioxide is then released from bicarbonate and passed to the alveoli. Okay, and then carbon dioxide is forced out, diffusing through blood capillaries and alveoli, just the vice versa of oxygen. Okay, due to the carbon dioxide concentration is higher in bloodstream than the alveoli, carbon dioxide diffused from the bloodstream to the alveolus, and then air out mechanism, we breathe out this carbon dioxide from the body. So is the gas exchange in the lungs and body cells, or gas exchange in the lungs and bloodstream and alveoli. So here the alveoli is specialized for gas exchange, huge number of microscopic alveoli actually present here within the lung, and the moist lining of the alveoli, it provides easy surface for gases to dissolve in, and they also has a very thin walls, and they also maintain a very good supply because of their network of capillaries on the alveoli surfaces. And permeable walls, gases can diffuse easily across their walls, because their walls are permeable for gases. So I think that's all for today. Thank you all.